I have to admit I'm a bit nervous here in the company of these absolutely esteemed women here. Uh, pardon me, I'm a nervous wreck right now. But I'm gonna start by kind of opening the floor here with a very simple question that I've had in my mind. You know, when I was looking at the profiles of all four of you, the first question that hit me was that, is glass ceiling really a myth? Because look at the four of you. You've kind of shattered every notion of glass ceiling in your respective careers. Does it really exist across the industry, across professions, across careers? Because if it really did, would the four of you really be where you are today? Or is it really something that exists and we've had to kind of fight hard to battle the glass ceiling that really exists there? So, I mean, it's an open question for the floor.
Okay, let me take a stab at it. I think it definitely does exist. It's not a myth. It is very, very true, and it's not just the big understanding of what is the glass ceiling. It's also the many different small ways in which women find themselves disadvantaged or discriminated against, and I think it's a constant struggle, especially when there are very few women at the top. You know, and especially where there are very few women breaking stereotypes. And Sunny's smiling at me because she has such a powerful story of her own. But for a lot of us in the corporates, I can tell you, because there are such few women at the top, you're constantly battling stereotypes. You're constantly battling the notion that you yourself are alone. So a lot of times, actually, it's a battle with yourself, because you have to keep telling yourself that even though mine is the only voice, I must make it heard for the sake of the many women who might hopefully someday come to where I am.
Right.
Okay, I completely agree with you. In fact, the glass ceiling definitely exists. I know there are a lot more women today that are breaking through and shattering through, and sort of provide that inspiration for other younger women out there. And not just in the field of corporates, I feel across the board. Like you look at an initiative like Girls Who Code. It's a global initiative, and it was primarily done because somebody on a US campaign trail discovered that there aren't enough women in computer sciences. And coding and technology is the way of the future, as we all know with folk media and the kind of solutions you guys are doing. But that doesn't seem to be the case. And that's why a lot of initiatives now are being taken up. I fear implementation is a challenge, and that's something that needs to be large scale. And in India, the interpretation of glass ceiling is very different, right? So a glass ceiling for somebody else might be my everyday. So I work in an alcohol industry, right? But I have colleagues who are female, who have to clearly take a stand to say, yes, with their in-laws, for instance, to say, yes, I can work in an alcohol industry and it's not a vice, it's a lifestyle, right? And that for me, I could take it as, okay, this is my norm. But for somebody else, it's completely different. Just a story, for instance, of a colleague of mine is transitioning from being a male to a female in the office. And just for something as small as which washroom should I use? Right? For me, that's such a normal thing. But for somebody else, that's their glass ceiling. So it's so different for each strata, each kind of person. And it definitely does exist in India for sure. There are steps that are being taken, but I feel platforms like this are super important to build that even further.
Sure.
Okay, so just really to the point, Eshta and Vani.
Ceiling. I call them the glass ceiling or a wall or a bumper. I think that every single person in business goes through this. In my experience, I've hit a lot of those walls, a lot of those bumps, a lot of those ceilings. But I do have an amazing team around me, which I give credit to. But I also think that those glass ceilings and those barriers and those barricades and bumpers are actually a tool to learn something. I am not in the corporate world, so I don't know what that feels like. But I do run my own world, and I do know the difficulties that I face, that my team faces, that we face on a daily, or that we face on, maybe it's every 6 months. Something insane comes our way, and it's horrible. The amount of press that subject gets, or things that happen. And all I have to say is that I've grown from those. And there's no one that can stop me. There's no one that can completely barricade me and put me in a cage and tell me no. That's how I see it. And the more someone tells me no, the more someone puts up those barricades, the more I fight. But that's my personality, and I know that there's a lot of women out there that feel like maybe they're alone, or maybe that they can't do it. And something that I learned a really long time ago was, if you're not gonna ask, then you're not gonna get it. If you're not gonna say, I want this, then it's never gonna come to you. If you don't voice what you want, then you're never gonna get there. Maybe it's more difficult, trying to get into that room where decisions are made, but, until you start saying it over and over again, maybe not your situation, but maybe somebody else's, that as a woman, you have to voice what you want. And then you say, I want this, how am I gonna get there? And if you're gonna put a barrier up, how do I get around that barrier? Because I know I'm better than you. I know I work harder than you. And I know my trade or craft, anything better than you do, whether you're a male or a female. So it's also, I think, a personal journey, like you had mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said, really, Sunny, that's really beautifully said. It speaks a lot of the kind of power and resilience that you have inside of you. But, I think the point one was trying to make was the fact that one should have to do this. One should have to prove to oneself and to others that I am better than you. I know I'm better than you. I know I worked hard and I can deliver more than you. The fact that one has to do this can sometimes be exhausting.
Oh, and it's exhausting every single day.
Exactly. So, and I think that's where the tension is, and that's the tension that we are addressing in this conversation, which is, why is it that women have to try so much harder when women are fundamentally, and research has proven so, in so many aspects of leadership, in so many aspects of collaboration, of nurturing, of integration, of bringing people together, are able to deliver so much more. It's been proven in research, it's been, we see it in the small networking groups, at levels where there are more women. And yet, women have to work as hard to get to the top, and there just aren't enough women at the top.
Yeah. Firstly, I feel so going back to why, like a lot of it is societal conditioning of how, as a society, women are not necessarily meant to be heard. And that's something that over the years, and with movements like Me Too, sort of a lot more women sort of speak up, feel like this is what I'm worth, and I should be there and speak about it. And I feel like the more we sort of facilitate movements and platforms like that, the more women who definitely deserve to be where they are feel far more self-assured to go out there and do a lot more. And I feel role models, like you said, right? Having a book like, say, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg got a whole lot more women to say, okay, I can be ambitious without being considered bossy in the boardroom. And a lot of it is, I feel, very, very strong conditioning. Like, I think we're fortunate to be from families which are fairly liberal about these things. But to fight that, you do need strength. And it either comes from a sisterhood or a team that supports you the whole way through.
Sure.
So if a woman, so
just
if
add
a
a
woman
little-
is stuck
yes.
in a room and it's just her and 5 men, does she not feel that validation of sitting there? Or does she still feel scared? What does she do to grow out of that?
You're absolutely right, Sunny. Actually, the thing is, this is not something that plagues women alone.
Yeah.
This is actually personality types. Because what you're talking about is the ability to have, the ability to speak up. It's about having the confidence of knowing that if I have a point of view, I must put it out there. There's doctors in the room, you didn't speak up for 30 minutes, for God's sake, when the doctor was there, why didn't you speak? I was feeling very shy, I didn't know how to talk about this, what would he think about blah? But this is not something that plagues women alone. There are enough number of introvert men as well. I think this is more a personality type. And the problem is that when we have discussions like these, it is not about specifically only addressing women. It's actually about addressing the need for having diverse opinions And the need for respecting, like you talked about that case in your office about this person who's going through a sex change, but the ability for us to collectively respect and give dignity to diverse opinions, because everybody doesn't have to be, oh, I'm out there and I have the ability to sit on stage and talk. Everybody doesn't need to be, but everybody has something to contribute, and we must be able to respect that and get the best from everyone.
Sure. I know I said I was nervous, and thanks for kind of taking the stage completely, which is lovely. I have a question, because I've been thinking about this, and I look at women from varied walks of life, and I do feel the intensity of discrimination kind of differs basis the field that you choose. You spoke about new age companies, you spoke about modern day work environments. Do you feel that the field that you choose also defines the intensity of the discrimination? Like, for example, in the movies, where it is so widespread, and we've had a movement where the women have come out and they've spoken so extensively about the kind of discrimination that they've faced. Do you really feel that there are modern day environments that are basically far more conducive to merit-driven ecosystems, where discrimination is not really as prevalent as you would find in traditional environments?
So, okay, I was just doing some reading up on this, and there is, like, traditional women kind of fields, like nursing and all. That's where they say that the men take the glass elevator, and women still get stuck with the glass ceiling. So even in the traditional, like, even if it's like cooking, like chefs, you'll see more chefs who are male in a traditional so-called female domain. You'll know far more Michelin level chefs who are guys than who are women. So I think it's a society thing, it's a mindset thing. It is also that because of various reasons, women start dropping off at the middle level. So just very few of us reach really to the top level. And coupled with the fact that there are few of us at the top, and sometimes they say that a woman is a woman's worst enemy. So, touching upon a very raw nerve here. But there are times when, people really try to play the politics between women, and just somewhere doesn't add up. Sure. So I really don't think it's to do with domain. Again, another statistic which I saw, I mean, not really numbers here, but glass ceiling also exists for minorities. So if you look at Asians in, let's say, US, but even the men there will do better than the women. So women white is okay, men non-white is okay, women non-white is like somewhere down there, right? So it just doesn't add up. So you have to work yourself far harder, far stronger, come to the point that say, okay, look at me, I have delivered, guys, please, I've worked hard enough, I deserve this. I mean, one of my very old bosses, like, I remember at the time, he said, oh, I know you've been doing very well, but you're a woman, you're a single girl who stays with a mom. That guy's got 2 daughters, let me give him better increment. And on my face, and that time, I mean, I'm talking about like about 10, 15 years ago, HR practices were not so developed, you were not so aware. So in today's day and age, I would have taken him to task in front of the HR team and said that, what's happening? But at that point in time, you were not aware. You were like, okay, maybe that's, I shouldn't ask for something, So things happen, and it's just conditioning. I think we've just kind of gotten into that.
Do you have a perspective in that?
I think the narrative's changed a little.
Or we all need a shot of testosterone.
But just interjecting here for a moment, what I really want to understand is, does it deter you today at your workplaces from laying out the ambition, from being the ambitious person that you may be, because that's your personality? Does it stop you from being that person? Because I've seen workplaces, and these are modern day workplaces, media entities, where women are judged for their ambition. You're called names, you're called things that are not very pleasant. And that's really what I'm trying to get to. Does it stop you from putting out the ambition? And probably you're kind of keeping it slightly, you're playing it down, and you're keeping it to yourself, unlike, the male boss or the manager who would unabashedly put it out on the table and kind of talk about wanting to kind of be the CEO in the next 3 to 5 years. You don't tend to see too many women talking with that level of aggression. And that's what I'm trying to get to.
You haven't been to my office. My employees don't
I think
like
they'll be very
when
happy
I
to
give
come,
it to
Sunny.
them.
I can promise you that. They'll be very happy to come to your office.
Bhavna was talking about this earlier. one can't not be one's true self. You know, you have to be your own true self. And you have to be able to enjoy doing what you're doing. So if surviving at office is an everyday, every moment struggle, where every moment I'm proving to everyone I'm good at this, then at some point in time, for everything that we've said, including taking on the responsibility of being role models, etc., one says, you know, I really don't need this shit. I can do better than this. So it's a question of making sure that we as people are happy. And I think in doing that also, we're being role models to everyone out there. Not just men, not just women, but also men. Because like I said, I think it's important to show others that I have the wisdom and the bravado and the courage inside me to do what makes me happy.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I feel as long as you're passionate.
It's a half and half. That's fine, I'll take it. But there is no room for any of that. If you don't know what you're doing at the end of the day and you mess up or you make a mistake that I know that you're better than what you've done, then you're going to hear it. And that's just what it is. And that, I think, is in any business. And I think that if you're a woman in the office and you know you're doing a good job and you know you're putting in your time and you know that you're good at what you're doing, any good businessman is going, or woman, if your boss is a woman, or it's a man, but we're talking about men being the boss, he's going to see that. He's going to see who you are eventually. Maybe it takes a little bit longer than it does the person next to you, who is a man, who just seems to be flying his way right to the top. Well, great, good for him. But it might be a slower climb up that ladder. But I do believe any good business person is going to see through the bullshit, is going to see what I call like cutting the fat in business. We cut out the extra fat and we find what is good for us. That's what I believe. I don't sit in an office, unfortunately, so I don't know or feel the things that some women do. I just know what goes on in my office, and I know how I handle business. And I am not so sensitive than
Sunny,
some of the other
it
people
does
are.
feel like the kind of environment that you have at your office and the kind of setup that it is far more open, forthright, sort of completely transparent, saying, I don't agree with what you said there. But in a lot of other larger setups, there are so many other politics and dynamics at play, and to navigate them, it does take a lot of energy. But eventually, you kind of know the ways of the game, and you know how to get things done. And I think it's complete credit to you that if you have such an open door policy, and a lot of companies will, on day zero of recruitment, be like, yeah, you walk into the MD's office anytime, and then when you try and get in there for a conversation about your career, you kind of hit the ceiling, right? So I think that's where women do need to know what they're worth, like you said, be far more assertive and put the time in, because entitlement will only get you so far, right? So whether you are a man or a woman, whether you had contacts and you got through, or you sort of just found your way through and it's a smooth sailing thing, eventually you will have to put that time in and be able to do it, whether there are politics at play or not. And if you feel you don't belong, then you just start something of your own like you did.
Is we are seeing a shift in this idea of having children and being able to work. Kareena Kapoor is a perfect example of that, where she is unstoppable. She's so amazing, and she works so hard, and she's still going at it. She's got herself back in shape to what she wants, and still has that drive and determination to keep working, which I think is absolutely amazing, and we should applaud her for that. And not taking those stereotypes and, kind of going to the wayside. I'm so happy she didn't do that. I am a different case and matter, because I just don't care what people think, and I'm not, I wasn't born and raised here. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is that my whole system and makeup and how I think is completely different. For me, I chose surrogacy and I chose adoption because I wanted to keep going and I wanted to keep working, and that was my own personal choice. I thought I was going to have one. I had three. That I wasn't planning on, but it's God's plan. Not my plan. That's God's plan. But I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything. My life is crazy, and my children were very upset that I was leaving the house today, and it broke my heart. But I wanted to be here, and I want to do this just as much as I want to see them. And I believe that I'm a better mother if I'm working and providing for my children than if I'm a stay-at-home mother. I'm not saying that being a stay-at-home mother is wrong. I'm saying God bless you for being the stay-at-home mother. But I feel that I'm a better person, I'm a better mother, I'm a better human being working than not working. And I think that my children will thank me one day for working.
Completely, absolutely.
You know, in the corporate world, while, like you said, all the planning should be at the corporate's end. It should be your bosses, it should be HR that takes on the onus of making sure that you come back to a position where you're able to give back, you know, where you're able to perform, where you're able to deliver. But more often than not, the responsibility falls on the mom. In the sense, you know, even with me, I had to go knocking from door to door to say, hey, I'm now available, you know.
So I just have a question to
Yeah,
clarify
sure.
for me. So when a woman here takes maternity leave, do you just disappear, or do you keep in contact with everybody, or do you work from home a little bit? How does that work?
No, so you disappear in the sense that you are, you know, entirely with your baby. You may wish to keep in touch with the office, and you may even wish to continue being in touch with work. But the problem is that the office is viewing you as a sunk investment. The office is looking at you and saying, oh, she's gone away for 3 months, or she's gone away for 6 months. And, you know, in these 6 months, in any case, we need to hire either a temp resource, or we need to bring in someone as a replacement. And when we bring in this person as a replacement, then what are we going to do with her? You know, or she should be comfortable taking a setback in her career. She should be comfortable getting a promotion now 2 years later because she's chosen to have a baby. So she's not going to be as productive.
Yeah,
How
and
long
give
is
smaller-
maternity leave?
Sorry.
How long is maternity leave?
6
here?
months.
6
Really?
months if you have a generous organization.
That's
No, but
amazing.
I believe the government
I
has...
wish I could take 6 months off my job.
No, that's coming from the
amazing.
government recently, Sunny. I mean, it used to be 3 months earlier. The government is now...
In America, I
Yes.
think it's like, I think it's 2 to 3 months only.
Yeah, so the government has now mandated most organizations to try and give 6 months of paid leave, which has come as a mandate now. So that's a good thing, I believe.
UK is 1 year, I think.
Is it? I'm
Yeah,
not aware of
UK
that.
or the Nordics, there's 1 year.
Yeah, even I think 6 months is too less. I mean, because when, you know, you're dealing with how you're looking and you're dealing with everything that's changing inside you, and then there's a little baby. So between the physical and the emotional bit, there's a lot of stuff that you have to deal with.
Right. So then, if you had an employee that came to you right now and said, I'm pregnant and in a few months I'm going to have a baby, what is your plan? What would your plan be for her?
I think I would figure, I mean, one has to discuss when are you coming back to work.
6
And-
months later.
Yeah, so 6 months later, if you're coming back to work 6 months later, one has to plan in the interim, what am I going to do? Alternatively, I then decide that this job, which you were doing until now, I give to someone else, and you're going to come back to another job where we feel you'd be better placed to perform better.
But
and
what
it's
if
going to
she
be a
wanted her
win-win.
old job back, but she's disappeared for 6 months? Then what?
Then you have to find the replacement. You know, you have to plan for that. I mean, one doesn't announce pregnancy overnight. You know, there are 9 months until you actually go away. So in those 9 months, it's more than enough time for manager and subordinate to be able to plan and figure what are we going to do in those 6 months.
Sorry, we're just out of time.
Yeah.
One last question that I want to conclude this with.
I agree with It's not about gender. I do believe that every single office is very, very different. Every job is different. The requirements are different. If you asked me to be a fireman, I'm sorry, I just could not do that. But if you asked me to...
It's been proven that even women commandos make better commandos as teams than men commandos. It's been proven in research, and it's been proven actually in live demos. So, you know, women could make far better firemen too. It's just
I'm
that we
sure.
don't have women firemen. Fire women, exactly.
Right. My biggest... Yes. My biggest issue sometimes, and this is from my own perspective, is women out there sometimes end up being the biggest people who are against everything, who say the most nastiest things that a man would never dream about saying. I'll go to a press conference and the most obnoxious things will come out of a woman's mouth. And I want to say, where are you from? Because I have no idea why you would ask questions like these that are so demeaning, that are so disrespectful in every way. I find that sometimes that happens more from women than it does from men. Maybe I have no idea where that comes from. But that's just my own perspective. And as far as leadership goes, I think that women who are amazing leaders, they're just amazing. You can't beat them. But if there are men that are just as good, that are open, like Hauterfly, like you're amazing. Your company has all these women work. They come into my office, and it's all women, except for one gentleman who didn't speak at all, who comes into I don't know if he's here or not, but it's...
He's here.
He's still not talking. Please stop talking,
he's a
wherever you
spectator.
are. Just stop talking because you talk too much. But I do think that there are male leaders out there like yourself who are embracing the idea of women voicing their opinions and doing things that they want and being able to talk about subjects and bringing the four of us on stage with you to talk about some of these extremely important issues. So I do think that there's a shift happening. So whether it's a male leader or a female leader, to me they fall into the same category.
Fantastic.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank
for
you.
making me
thank
part
you
of Hauterfly.
So that's lovely. No, this has been great, ladies. Thank you so much. I think this has been a really fruitful discussion and a very insightful discussion. Can you have a big round of applause for all the panelists here, please, guys? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sunny, your association with FMD, like what have you say about it?
My association with Hauterfly and Summer is something that took a little bit of time for us to figure out what we were going to do. And I know they had a vision and a direction they wanted to go, and I'm happy that we were all on the same page of being able to create great content and create content that I believe people would be interested in, and content that felt real. That's what was important to me.
Absolutely.
Okay, how did Sunny came into your mind for the...
Hello! Isn't that every day? Everybody's like, I'm on their mind. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think it's tough for Sunny to come into anyone's mind, for that matter of fact. She's top of the mind recall, clearly. But I think, when you're kind of looking at Hauterfly, and Hauterfly is a fashion beauty portal that kind of, like Sunny said, talks to real women for real issues. And who better than, Sunny to kind of reflect and kind of talk about real issues and real women, because she's had such an interesting life where she's kind of led it with utmost dignity and respect. So we saw that marriage happening absolutely beautifully.
Okay. Sunny, tell us, how was it associating with him and all?
The association is absolutely amazing. I think that when you can have an association with a company and be able to be on the same page and have the same concerns and be able to be open to suggestions or different ideas, as most people must know, I'm pretty opinionated, and it's, even though I'd like it to be my way or the highway, I know that can't happen, and it has to be a give and take. And I think that everything that we've shot so far has been something that we've agreed on, that it should feel like we're making great content, and I think that's what's most important.
Yeah.
Sunny, how do you feel you are good in business? Like, working as a businesswoman, how do you handle your business?
I think every company is different, and both Daniel and I have a no bullshit approach for a lot of different things. Everything's pretty black and white, straightforward. We don't believe in the idea of making people run around in circles. I think our deal is pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they usually are. And as far as our employees go and everybody, we just believe that everybody should work hard. And I know what I put into my day, and I expect the same thing from my employees, and that's it.
सनी लास्ट क्वेश्चन दूसरे डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म से या कोई भी विमेंस वेब मैगजीन्स हमेशा से रही है तो एज एन इन्वेस्टर व्हाट आर यू एडिंग जो पहले किसी मैगजीन या किसी डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म में नहीं है
I don't think it's about what somebody's done or what somebody hasn't done. I think this is about taking ideas that maybe have been spoken about before and giving it our own spin, our own thought, my own opinion of those things, and their statistics and their opinions of how it should be shot and things that we should talk about. I believe that the biggest thing for myself was that it should feel real. It should feel like if anybody could go out and do the things that we're talking about, and or providing the steps of how that woman can accomplish these things.
Sunny, we're talking about Bollywood, like you're talking about equality, like maybe you're talking about gender equality. In Bollywood, do you feel the actors, has that kind of a equality, like in compared to the
Well, I think that each actor is different. I do believe that there are differences. As far as myself goes, I can only speak about my own experiences and what I've gone through, and it's not been easy. I've had to create my own path, and my team and Daniel and everybody, we have to fight tooth and nail to do everything that we want to. Do I have the best of lineup when I have a film coming out? Do I work with those big A-list actors? No, but I create my own path and I make my own decisions, and I'm happy for that. And I'm happy that I'm able to do things my way, and which is the most important to me. No one's telling me what to do, and I like that.
Okay, Sunny, as you have talked about the
Sunny, one last question. Sunny days a year, what do you do to beat the sun?
Wait, what?
Sunny days, I mean to say it's hot out.
It's hot outside.
Last question, guys.
What am I doing to beat the sun? I don't know. I'm going to Rajasthan for a month. I'm going to be in the sun every single day. That's going to be a very good question. But if I had to say something, it would be coconut water. It would be a lot of light food, not fried stuff, and light clothing, nothing too heavy, and that would be really uncomfortable. That'd be it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.